The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my home office as I reviewed the quarterly distribution reports from the Hartwell Foundation. $237 million allocated to educational initiatives across the Pacific Northwest this year alone. Not bad for someone who supposedly spends her days playing on the computer, as my sister-in-law Vivian so eloquently puts it. My name is Diana Hartwell, and for the past 12 years, I've been quietly building one of the largest private foundations in the region. What started as a modest inheritance from my grandfather has grown into a philanthropic empire that funds everything from inner-city schools to cutting-edge medical research. The foundation operates with complete discretion. No publicity, no recognition ceremonies, just results. I learned long ago that real impact happens when ego gets out of the way. My brother Jake married Vivian 6 years ago, and since then family gatherings have become exercises in patience. Vivian comes from old Seattle money, the kind of wealth that announces itself through charity boards and social registers rather than actual work. She's never held a paying job in her life, but somehow considers herself an expert on success and social standing. Jake adores her, which is why I've bitten my tongue through countless dinner conversations where she's explained why my little computer business will never amount to anything substantial. The irony is that I actually do work in technology, running a software consulting firm that generates modest but steady revenue. It's legitimate work that I enjoy, providing enterprise solutions for mid-sized companies across the region. What Vivian doesn't know is that the consulting firm is essentially a hobby, something to keep me engaged while the foundation's investments compound quietly in the background. My grandfather was a brilliant man who understood that true wealth grows best in darkness, away from the scrutiny and envy that comes with public success. The call came Tuesday morning while I was reviewing grant applications. Jake's voice carried that familiar note of careful diplomacy that meant Vivian had issued another decree. "Diana, I hope you're sitting down," he began. "Vivian's been selected to chair the Children's Hospital annual gala this year. It's a huge honor. They've never chosen someone so young for the position." I set aside the application I'd been reading and gave him my full attention. "That's wonderful, Jake. She must be thrilled." "She is. The thing is..." He paused and I could practically hear him choosing his words carefully. "The gala is quite formal this year. Black tie, very exclusive. Vivian's worked really hard to elevate the event's profile, and she's concerned about maintaining a certain image." The subtext was clear, but I waited for him to spell it out. Jake had always been conflict-averse, preferring to dance around difficult conversations rather than address them directly. "She'd love to have you there, obviously," he continued. "But she's wondering if maybe you could bring someone? A date? Someone who works in business or finance. She just thinks it would help with the optics." I almost laughed. Vivian's concern wasn't about me bringing a date. It was about me showing up at all. But Jake was trying to soften the blow, probably hoping I'd decline gracefully rather than force an uncomfortable confrontation. "I understand," I said simply. "Let me think about it." "Great. I'll tell her you're considering it. The gala's next Saturday at the Four Seasons. 7 o'clock. After hanging up, I turned back to my grant applications, but my focus had shifted. Among the proposals was a detailed request from Seattle Children's Hospital for a new pediatric cancer research facility. The project needed $2 million in private funding to move forward, and the proposal was compelling. Dr. Peterson's research team had identified promising new treatment protocols, but they lacked the laboratory space and equipment to advance their work. I made a note to have my program director reach out to the hospital's development office. Anonymous donations were our specialty, and this project aligned perfectly with the foundation's mission of supporting innovative medical research. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang again. This time it was Vivian herself, her voice carrying that particular tone of strained politeness she used when addressing people she considered beneath her social circle. "Diana, darling, I hope Jake mentioned the gala to you." "He did. Congratulations on being selected as chair. That's quite an achievement." "Thank you." Her pause was long enough to be meaningful. I wanted to reach out personally because, well, this event is incredibly important to me. We're expecting some very influential people. Board members from major corporations, philanthropists, community leaders. The kind of gathering that can really make a difference for the hospital. I waited, knowing there was more coming. "The thing is," she continued, her voice taking on that careful, condescending rhythm she used when explaining things to people she considered slow. The guest list has to be curated very carefully. We're trying to create an environment that encourages major donations, and that means maintaining a certain caliber of attendee. I see. It's not personal, you understand. It's just that this crowd expects to mingle with successful business leaders, people who understand their world. And honestly, Diana, I'm not sure you'd be comfortable. The conversation tends to focus on business deals, investment strategies, that sort of thing. It might be rather boring for someone in your situation. The word situation hung in the air like an insult wrapped in silk. Vivian had perfected the art of making rejection sound like a kindness. My situation? Well, being unemployed and all. I mean, your little computer thing is sweet, but it's not exactly a career, is it? These people deal in millions of dollars, not small freelance projects. I felt the familiar calm that came over me when people revealed their true nature. It was the same feeling I'd experienced in countless board meetings when venture capitalists had dismissed my proposals based on my age or gender, right before I'd quietly outmaneuvered them. I understand completely, I said. You need to maintain the event's integrity. Exactly. Her relief was palpable. I knew you'd understand. Maybe next year when you've gotten your career sorted out. We could even help you network, introduce you to some people who might have entry-level opportunities. That's very generous of you, Vivian. Family takes care of family, she said, her voice warm with the satisfaction of someone who believed she'd handled a delicate situation with perfect grace. I'll make sure Jake knows how understanding you were about this. After hanging up, I sat in my office for a long moment, watching the city spread out below me. My penthouse apartment occupied the top 2 floors of a building I'd purchased through a shell company 3 years ago. From here I could see the Space Needle, Elliott Bay, and the sprawling campus of Seattle Children's Hospital in the distance. I opened my laptop and pulled up the foundation's donor management system. The Children's Hospital Gala was listed among our pending donations, tagged for a $2 million anonymous contribution to be announced during the event. The timing had been carefully coordinated with the hospital's development team to maximize impact during their annual fundraising push. I picked up my phone and dialed my program director, Catherine. Catherine, it's Diana. I need you to make a change to the Children's Hospital donation. Of course. What kind of change? Withdraw it. Effective immediately. There was a pause. Catherine had been with the foundation for 8 years and knew better than to question my decisions, but this was unusual. We rarely reversed funding decisions once they'd been approved. All of it? The full $2 million. All of it. And Catherine? Make sure the hospital knows the withdrawal is effective immediately. Their gala is Saturday night, and they'll need time to adjust their fundraising expectations. Understood. Should I provide a reason? Just say the foundation has decided to redirect funds to other priorities. I'll take care of it within the hour. Friday morning brought the inevitable phone call from Jake. His voice was strained, carrying the tension of someone caught between conflicting loyalties. Diana, what the hell happened with the Children's Hospital? Vivian got a call from their development office yesterday afternoon. They're panicking about some major donor pulling out at the last minute. I continued reviewing reports while we talked, multitasking with the efficiency that came from managing complex operations across multiple time zones. That's unfortunate timing, I said neutrally. They lost $2 million, Diana. $2 million. The gala is tomorrow night, and now they're scrambling to find replacement funding. Vivian's beside herself. She's worried this reflects poorly on her leadership. These things happen in fundraising, I replied. Donors change their minds for all sorts of reasons. But the timing is so suspicious. Right after Vivian talked to you about the gala. You couldn't have. He trailed off, the implication hanging between us. Jake knew I did well financially. He'd seen my apartment, noticed the quality of my clothes and possessions. But like Vivian, he'd never bothered to look deeper, to ask questions about how a freelance consultant could afford a lifestyle that suggested significant wealth. Couldn't have what, Jake? Never mind. It's just weird timing. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made Seattle feel like a postcard. I spent the day in my office, reviewing investment reports from the foundation's portfolio managers. Our tech sector investments had performed particularly well this quarter, generating an additional $12 million in assets under management. It was satisfying work watching careful strategy translate into real-world impact. At 7:30 my phone rang. The caller ID showed Jake's number, but the voice was Vivian's, high-pitched with barely controlled panic. "Diana, thank God you answered. I need your help." I set aside my reading and gave her my full attention. "What's wrong, Vivian?" "It's a disaster. The hospital's major donor pulled out yesterday, and now we're short $2 million for the auction portion. The Gala committee is furious, the board members are asking questions, and I look like a complete failure." Her carefully constructed social persona was cracking under pressure, revealing the insecurity that drove her need to control every aspect of her environment. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do?" "Actually, yes. I know this is last minute and I know what I said before, but could you possibly attend tonight? We need bodies in seats, and at this point I can't afford to be picky about the guest list." The irony was delicious. 24 hours ago, I wasn't worthy of breathing the same air as her prestigious guests. Now she was begging me to help salvage her reputation. "I appreciate the invitation," I said carefully. "But didn't you say this crowd expects to mingle with successful business leaders? I wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Please, Diana. I'm desperate. Jake will kill me if this gala is a failure, and I've worked so hard to build relationships with these people. I can't have my first major event be a complete disaster." I checked my watch. 8 o'clock. The gala had started 30 minutes ago, and I could hear the strain in her voice suggesting things weren't going well. "Actually, Vivian, there might be something I can do. Let me make a phone call." "Really? You know someone who might be able to help?" "Possibly. Give me 10 minutes. I hung up and dialed Catherine's emergency line. She answered on the first ring, alert and professional despite the weekend evening. "Diana? Is everything all right? I need you to contact Seattle Children's Hospital immediately. Tell them the Hartwell Foundation is prepared to restore the $2 million donation, but it needs to be announced tonight during their gala." "Of course. Same terms as before." "Same terms. Anonymous donor, but make sure they understand the timing is critical. The announcement needs to happen within the next hour. I'll call Dr. Peterson directly. He gave me his personal number during our initial discussions." "Perfect. And Catherine? Make sure they understand this is a one-time opportunity. If they can't make the announcement tonight, the offer expires." "Understood. I'll handle it immediately." 10 minutes later my phone rang again. This time Jake was on the line, his voice filled with bewildered relief. "Diana, I don't know what you did, but Dr. Peterson just announced that they've received a $2 million anonymous donation." The entire gala erupted in applause. Vivian is crying, happy tears for once. I smiled, watching the city lights twinkle below my windows. "That's wonderful news. I'm so glad everything worked out. Who do you know that could make something like this happen?" "Sometimes things just fall into place," I said. "The important thing is that the hospital got their funding." An hour later Vivian called back. Her voice was different now, breathless with gratitude and something that sounded almost like respect. "Diana, I don't know how you made this happen, but you saved my entire career tonight. The board members are calling this the most successful gala in the hospital's history. Dr. Peterson wants to meet whoever arranged this donation. I'm just glad it worked out." "No, this is more than that. Jake told me you made a phone call and somehow produced $2 million out of thin air. Who do you know? What connections do you have that I don't know about?" I could hear the wheels turning in her mind, trying to reconcile her perception of me with the reality of what had just occurred. Vivian lived in a world where everything came down to connections and social positioning. The idea that her unemployed sister-in-law could orchestrate a multi-million-dollar donation didn't fit her understanding of how power worked. "Sometimes it's not about who you know," I said gently. "Sometimes it's about what you can do." The silence that followed was long and thoughtful. When Vivian spoke again, her voice had lost its usual condescending edge. "Diana, I owe you an apology. I clearly misjudged your situation, your connections, your influence. I don't understand how, but you obviously move in circles I didn't know about." "Apology accepted. I'd like to make it up to you. Maybe we could have lunch next week? I'd love to hear more about your work, your business relationships. Perhaps we could find ways to collaborate." I almost laughed at how quickly her tune had changed. 12 hours ago, I was an embarrassment to be hidden from her prestigious guests. Now I was a valuable connection to be cultivated. "I'll check my calendar," I said diplomatically. "Of course. And Diana? Next year's gala, you'll be at the head table. VIP treatment all the way. I want everyone to know we're family." After hanging up, I returned to my investment reports, but my focus kept drifting to the view outside my windows. The Children's Hospital was lit up against the night sky, its research wings soon to be expanded with the funding I'd provided. Dr. Peterson's team would have their new laboratory, dozens of children would benefit from advanced treatment protocols, and medical research would advance incrementally toward better outcomes. That was what mattered, not Vivian's social anxiety or her newfound respect for my connections. The foundation had always operated on the principle that impact trumped recognition, that results mattered more than relationships. 6 months later, I received a beautifully engraved invitation to serve on the Children's Hospital Board of Directors. Dr. Peterson had recommended me personally, citing my demonstrated commitment to pediatric medical research. Vivian had enthusiastically seconded the nomination, telling everyone who would listen about my philanthropic connections and business acumen. I accepted the position, of course. It would give me better insight into the hospital's long-term needs and help guide future foundation grants. But I kept my role with the Hartwell Foundation private, letting people draw their own conclusions about my mysterious donor connections. At family dinners now, Vivian hangs on every word I say about business and philanthropy. She's convinced I'm some kind of behind-the-scenes power broker, moving millions of dollars through shadowy networks of influence. In a way, she's not wrong. She just doesn't understand that the network is my foundation, and the influence comes from patient capital allocation rather than social positioning. Jake still doesn't fully understand what happened that night, but he's stopped trying to figure it out. He's just grateful that his wife considers me an asset rather than an embarrassment, and family gatherings have become significantly more pleasant. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them discover they were wrong on their own terms in their own time, when the truth serves a purpose greater than personal satisfaction.